I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
That I will execute
faithfully the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States faithfully.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President. All the best wishes.
Welcome to episode 2 of D-talkville. You have just seen a recording of President Barack Hussein Obama swearing in as the 44th President of the United States. This historical event took place on January 20, 2009. Barack Hussein Obama became the first black African American sworn in as President of the United States of America. Today I want to dedicate this episode of D-talkville to Black History Month, also known as African American History Month, to reflect on the achievements of African Americans throughout history. This year, 2011, America celebrates the 150th anniversary of the beginning of the American Civil War in 1861, and that is a fitting official theme for Black History Month 2011. Slavery began in the United States almost from the beginning in the 17th century. Thomas Jefferson, later to become the third President of the United States, 1801-1809, was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. Article 1, Section 2 was thankfully superseded by Amendment 14, Section 2, ratified in 1868. That reads, "Citizenship rights not to be abridged. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole numbers of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed." Well, officially there were now no slaves by 1868. They had been freed 3 years earlier in 1865. Indians and women, you have to wait a bit more. The 13th Amendment reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crimes whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation." In 1963, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. references most of these points in his speech at the Lincoln Memorial.
"I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream."
He also references a spiritual song called "Free at Last."
Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
There are many versions of this song, and I can't find one that was properly the original version. The earliest version I can find the lyrics for are in fact very bittersweet. I'm not sure it's a happy song. Death, it seems, is a road to freedom for the slave. Judge for yourself. The words without the chorus line read something like this. "Way down yonder in the graveyard walk, me and my Jesus going to meet and talk. On my knees when the light passed by, thought my soul would rise and fly. Some of those morning bright and fair, going meet Jesus in the air. Free at last, I thank God, I'm free at last." By the time we reached the 19th century, the movement to free the slaves was well underway. Between 15th and 19th century, 370 years, it has been estimated that at least 12 million slaves were transported across the Atlantic. Known as the Middle Passage, 10 to 20% died on board these ships. Of these, only an estimated 650,000 came to the United States. Freedom. Things began to pick up speed in the 20th century. For the first time, African Americans were beginning to be seen and heard, the main thrust coming from a group of poets, writers and artists known as the Harlem Renaissance. The writer-poet Langston Hughes stand out as one of the giants from that period. This was also reflected in music and dance, the age of swing, the age of jazz. Turning to the movies, it was not by accident that the first talking movie was called The Jazz Singer in 1927. It started Al Jolson, a Jewish immigrant from the Ukraine. In these days, blacks could not perform publicly with whites on stage or in a movie set, neither in the South nor the North. Al Jolson helped to make black people visible by blackening his face with grease paint and singing minstrel, gospel and vaudeville songs. You wouldn't get away with that today, but that was then and this is now. The next landmark movie I would like to bring to your attention came 10 years later in 1937. It was the Marx Brothers movie A Day at the Races. Just watch the last scene. Critics, I think, totally misunderstand this scene, which takes place in a plantation. Harpo, my hero, and Groucho and Chico throw everything they know at the racial barriers. Song, dance, gospel, swing, jazz, choral, operatic, patriotic, grease paint, false accents. They sang, danced and laughed the barriers down. Stereotypes? Absolutely. That was a point. Watch Harpo Marx play the role of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, playing and dancing through the plantation. Who's that man? It's Gabriel. Powerful stuff. The white public saw and heard the blacks in the cinemas. No one could be fooled by their black-face disguises. Harpo had only half a black face, Groucho just a few smears. Then came the Second World War, the 50s, the 60s, the protest movements, the peace movements, the civil rights movements, the 70s, all with the eyes on the prize. My Hall of Fame, in no particular order: literature, Langston Hughes, Ralph Ellison, Richard Wright, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison. Jazz, Jelly Roll Morton, Kid Ory, Cab Galloway, Fats Waller, Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday, John Coltrane, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, Blind Gary Davis, John Lee Hooker, Memphis Slim, Sam Cooke, Chuck Berry, Diana Ross, Jimi Hendrix, Michael Jackson. Cinema, Paul Robeson, Sidney Poitier, Morgan Freeman, Whoopi Goldberg. TV, Bill Cosby, Oprah Winfrey. Sports, Jesse Owens, Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson. Religion and politics, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King, Malcolm X, Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, President Barack Obama. The list goes on and on and on. It has been a long and winding road from slavery to freedom. Where will it take us tomorrow? Who knows? We have no idea. A wise man once said, "We walk through time backwards. We are able to see our past clearly, even sometimes with difficulty, but it is there to be seen. Our future, that's for prophets and visionaries." Till next episode of D-talkville.